Today on Locked On Red Wings, Ben Chiarot extended 3 more years for $3.85 million.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And you can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts. And you can listen to us ad-free if you go to Locked On Podcast /everydayer and go sign up for the Everydayer Club. Again, that gives you access to ad-free episodes as well as an exclusive Discord, which you can talk to Scotty and I. So again, lockedonpodcast.com /everydayer. Scotty, the Detroit Red Wings extended, kind of unexpectedly so, Ben Chiarot for 3 years, $3.85 million. This will take Ben Chiarot through his age 37 season, as he'll turn 38, I believe, in May when it expires. Actually, he's turning 35 this May, so I think he will be 38 when it expires. So, Scotty, I mean, right off rip, initial thoughts on the extension for Ben Chiarot?
I'm fine with it, man. It's so odd. We talked about it a little bit before we hit record. If you would have said in year one of Ben Chiarot that he'd get a 3-year extension in the final year of his current deal, and that I wouldn't be infuriated about it, I probably wouldn't have believed you. And that's, not an insult directed at him. It was just the first year. I think a lot more was expected of him. I think probably the first 2 years, a lot more was expected of him. But I think over the last season or season and a half, he has really kind of, I don't want to say developed into a role, but he's found his role. And I think that as expectations have gone down of okay, this guy's clearly not going to give you first pair level production, and we all need to accept that. I think that the versatility of being able to play both sides, the leadership aspect, the being one of the only guys that's even remotely physical kind of out there for really the blue line or the forward group. I think that there's a lot of things that he brings that are valuable to the team, and I think that this is also not very much money. I mean, in terms of cap percentage, he's getting it's a down. What am I thinking of? Not a downgrade, a
reduction.
Sure, yeah. It's fewer. It's less than than it was.
Smaller.
So right, so it is. I really don't have an issue with it. This is bottom 4 money, and he's going to be presumably in a bottom 4 role. And again, I think part of it has to do with the fact that they feel relatively confident putting him on either side as well. I mean, that kind of versatility doesn't necessarily grow on trees, and so yeah, I think you can do a lot worse in terms of a depth defenseman. And with the cap, it continues to rise, and what it is, the cap hit that he is going to take with this deal is pretty minimal. I don't have too much of an issue with this.
Right. It's $900,000 less per season than he's currently making, because he originally signed 4 years, $4.75 million. And I'll be the first to tell you, when he signed that deal, I mean, I believe my take at the time, I remember back far that correctly, which rarely happens, I was not very thrilled about it, but I was at that stage still in the rebuild where I was like, I'm just going to trust Yzerman knows what he's talking about, because every analytical point screamed this guy's not very good. And those analytical points still say that about Ben Chiarot. But now, having watched Ben Chiarot for the last 4 years, I can at least understand why organizations value him so much. Because don't forget that Yzerman's not the only one who's paid a heavy price to have Ben Chiarot on their hockey team. The Florida Panthers paid a first-round pick to get him as a rental from Montreal on their playoff run. So like we're not the only team that clearly values this guy. And his 3.85, like I said, is $900,000 less than he's currently making. With the rising cap, is a lot closer to third pair money than it used to be. And cap percentage of the cap wise, it is also smaller, right? The 4.75 when he signed it took up 5.5%, 5.7% of the cap. The new deal takes up just 3.7% of the current cap when that cap kicks in next season, when the extension kicks in. So it's $100,000 less, but 2% less of the cap. And getting away from that, like, I understand it's so funny, the discrepancy between what Red Wings fans are saying about Ben Chiarot versus what all the analytical models say about Ben Chiarot. And I'm an analytical guy. I love that data. I was
going to say, I think it's funny that you're not siding with the analytics.
Yeah, it's one of those things where he just has nothing that analytics loves.
Yeah, no.
But you watch him play, and he holds his own out there. And I think the two things that he really brings to this team that this team desperately needs and does not have in spades without him, one is the physical element. I was just on here yesterday complaining about the fact that this team does not play physical enough. Ben Chiarot plays super physical, which is something this team needs. He stands up for his teammates on the ice. And we talked about the Sens game a couple weeks ago, where Tkachuk was going after Soderblom, and Chiarot, with a guy already on him, grabs Tkachuk and pulls him to the side. That's an intangible. You talk about, and he does chase hits and gets himself out of position. It's one of those Ben Chiarot taketh and giveth away conversations.
And taketh, as we always say, yeah.
But he's also a huge locker room leader. Like, this does not happen. This extension doesn't happen in the middle of the season without both the organization and the player coming together and saying, we really like this situation. We want to continue this. Is Ben Chiarot a perfect player? By no means, no. I'm not coming on here and saying he is an ideal second pair defenseman. Ben Chiarot probably should be playing third pair. He is being asked to play more and above his station. And for the most part this season, he's holding his own. You go back to that first year, and we were highly critical of it, and I deservedly so to a certain point when you're playing a guy at that time, what was pretty good amount of money, and he's on the top pair and he's getting caved in. Yeah, you're gonna criticize it. But he was playing top pair minutes in ridiculous assignments with Moritz Seider, and he's not a top pair defenseman. He really never has been. So he's playing above his station, and of course getting caved in ridiculous deployments. And then last year, he's playing with Jeff Petrie for long stretches of the season, or again with Moritz Seider in tough deployments above his station again. And
remember
then this year,
Chiarot and Petrie pair?
It was rough. And then this year he's playing with Axel Sandin Pellikka, who's struggling defensively. So he's kind of had to been the safety net for that defensive pair. So Ben Chiarot by no means is like gonna win you. Like, he's not gonna be a game changer for you. But when you take into account the fact that with the eye test, and I know those advanced analytics aren't going to agree with Ben Chiarot, and I get it. He's not great, but he holds his own. When you take that into account with the intangibles that it doesn't take into account for, and the fact that the free agent market is going to be trash again because the cap keeps rising, so teams keep retaining their own guys. I took a look beforehand. The only left shot defenseman on the market that I'd have any interest in right now is Mario Ferraro. There's not really any other left shot defenseman that I would go, that's the guy I want over top of Ben Chiarot right now. It's not great, and it's going to get thinner as the season goes on. So this is also a little bit of future-proofing by Detroit to avoid having to bank on a free agent that's not going to come here. So I think it makes a lot of sense for all those reasons. But I will not say, as much as I'm praising this extension, because I think Ben Chiarot's played good enough to earn this deal, and it makes sense with the free agent market, and hopefully you face him into a third pair role. If he's still playing second pair minutes by year 2 of this contract, that's a problem. That's an Yzerman problem, but that's a problem. You got to find somebody to fill in that second pair. He's ideal third pair, in my opinion.
I completely agree with you, and I think that role is certainly part of the conversation that's going to stem from the announcement of the extension. Yeah, I completely agree. I hope that is the plan. I think that the step down in money and cap percentage is kind of evidence of that. You know what I mean? I'm hoping that is the case. I completely agree with you. I have a hard time believing they're, walking it up to Ben Chiarot and approaching him to take a pay cut to then be a I don't know, bona fide top 4 guy for the next 3 years, especially as he gets older. But I think you could do, honestly, a lot worse in terms of a third pair defenseman. I think you could do a heck of a lot worse. We've seen a lot worse from third pair defensemen, not only this year, but dating back to the last few seasons. So, yeah, if the blue line depth improves to a point where he is in that role, I love the deal, and I love that role for him.
Yeah, Scotty. I do have a couple other comments about the contract itself that I'd like to get to, but we need to get to a break. So let's get to that first, and then we'll come back and continue this conversation on the Ben Chiarot extension. So stay tuned to segment 2 of Locked On Red Wings. If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important it is. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored job posts put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. If I needed to hire someone for this show, I'd go straight to Indeed and be very specific about what I need. Real experience, not just a resume buzzword. Sponsored jobs boost your post to the people who are the best match for your role, and that makes a real difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored job posts directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results. Using Indeed sponsored jobs, listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help you give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support this show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed.
Indeed it is.
Scotty, we spoke a lot in segment 1 about why we're okay with this contract extension for Ben Chiarot. And also stating, while we're okay with it, because we understand where the market's at and we understand the intangibles he brings to the locker room, we also commented upon how by year 2 and 3, you can't have 37 and 38-year-old Ben Chiarot be your second pair defenseman anymore. That's just not sustainable.
For sure.
That brings me to kind of my one point of anxiety. That's not quite the right word I'm looking for, but my one point of contention with this contract, and that's the fact that the money's great. 3.85, that's A-okay. 3 years for a guy who's going to be 35 in May is a little much. But I also understand that third year is probably also what kept him under $4 million. Because if you get to 2 years, shorter time frame, a little bit more money likely for a guy of his age. So I'm not in love with the third year, but I can live with it.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that. I think there are. Yeah, look, I mean, ultimately, as I said the other day, if you're looking for the perfect deal and waiting around for the perfect deal, then you're just never going to make a deal. There's got to be some give and take with all of this. If they really want to prioritize bringing him back, then that is, I'm sure, something that was, needed or was a necessity to make the deal happen. Now, going above and beyond to bring in a bottom 4 at best, if not future third pair guy that is, more of a veteran locker room guy. I mean, maybe you can point at and be I'd rather we went above and beyond for other guys, but I have no issue with it. And I think that ultimately, with the direction that the cap is headed, I mean, if he's completely awful in year 3, then they're just going to waive him. Like at that point, it's just expendable, 1 year left on a deal thing, whatever. The only way that this is a like train wreck for me is if he falls off a cliff and starts playing completely horribly like next season. If it takes until the final year of his deal, then like who even cares? It's the final year of a $3 million deal, and they'll just eat it or figure out something to do with it and move on. And that won't be that big of a problem. They just need to make sure that he's good leading up to that final year. That's
right. It's not the kind of deal that's going to leave you cap strapped, especially with how much money the Red Wings still have going into next offseason. The other thing too is he does have trade protection. The first year is completely no trade clause. The third year is a modified 10-team no trade clause. So he gets 10 teams. He can say, I'm not going to. Everyone else you can talk to me about. The second year is interesting, Scotty. In year 2, he has a full no trade clause up until 28 days before the deadline, in which it becomes a 10-team no trade clause. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments to all our lovely listeners. We love having you. Have you ever seen a modified no trade clause quite like that, where it's a full NTC until a month before the deadline, and then it moves to a 10-team? Because what that screams to me is, don't trade me in the offseason. Maybe if we suck, I'll be willing to waive to go to a contender. That's how I read that situation.
Yeah, it's how I read it too. I think that's how most people probably read it. Which I kind of think is like electric from his perspective. Like I kind of love it. Good for him to get a little bit more control over that. But yeah, I'm sure that's what it is. I'm sure it's if the Wings completely fall apart and you want to trade me to a contender to finish out my career, then I'm not going to stop that. But I'm not packing up and starting up my life again, in an off-season deal 1 year into this thing. So good for him.
Good for Ben Chiarot. The only final thing I have about Chiarot isn't Chiarot specific, but Chiarot adjacent. Max Boltman wrote a piece in The Athletic about the signing, right? And in his final paragraph, he mentioned something that stood out to me. And that is, with this extension of Ben Chiarot, your left side of your defense is pretty much set. It's Simon Edvinsson, Ben Chiarot, and Albert Johansson for the foreseeable future. That means guys like Shai Buyum and William Wallinder, and Wallinder can play on the right side, granted, are kind of blocked from playing in the NHL, which, as Max noted, is kind of an interesting wrinkle a month before the trade deadline approaches, that two of your left side D prospects that are probably NHL caliber suddenly don't have a spot on the roster. So, not implying that they're going to be traded, but something to definitely keep an eye on when you have two prospects that could play in the NHL that no longer have really a pathway to the NHL, and you're looking to be a buyer at the deadline. It's not hard to start making leaps in logic. And that's what it is. It's a leap in logic, but it's not hard to make that leap.
Yeah, I think that this is much more about flexibility to do whatever they please rather than specifically making those guys available. Does that make sense? Like they can keep Chiarot there and Aljo there, and I'd imagine, barring trades, that's the plan the rest of the year. But I also don't think that that's like a solidified left side for the next 3 years. I mean, we just spent a whole segment talking about how we hope Ben Chiarot ends up on the third pair. Like there is still, I think, plenty of room to grow in that regard, and ultimately, like if they're impressed enough with the play of those guys, then they'll find a way for them to get on the roster. But I think that this gives them the flexibility to kind of do whatever they want. If they 2 years from now want to trade Ben Chiarot, then so be it. If they want to trade one of those guys right now because they know that they have the left side locked up a little bit more, then so be it. Also, as I mentioned in segment 1, Chiarot can kind of play both sides. And it's not, I think they'd prefer him where he's at, but he's played plenty of both sides, not only in his career, but just, with the Wings even. So, there's a lot of, again, this just gives them flexibility. It is not a definite of anything, but it gives them the option of anything because they can fill in a gap and plug a hole or make a trade or not make a trade, kind of however they see fit. And I think that that's probably the motivation there.
You get an Aljo, Ben Chiarot third pair after ASP develops into a second pair defenseman, or ASP, becomes a power play specialist third pair defenseman, and you can put Ben Chiarot down there. Maybe Albert Johansson grows into a second pair defenseman full time. He's showing a little bit of growth here as the second half of the year goes on. There's definitely flexibility there with a guy like Albert Johansson and Ben Chiarot who can play both sides of the ice. That's a great point by you. Scotty, let's head to another break. We're talking about Albert Johansson. I don't know if you saw lines from practice, Scotty. They're getting a little interesting. So stay tuned to segment 3 of Locked On Red Wings. Pro-level transition. Let's be real. Managing your finances can feel overwhelming between subscriptions that you forgot about, bills that keep going up, and trying to figure out where all your money actually goes each month. It's easy to feel like you're losing control. And who has time to track every transaction or hunt down hidden fees? That's where Rocket Money comes in, the personal finance app that helps you take control. It finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. You're going to be shocked when Rocket Money shows you how much you're paying for in subscriptions that you completely forgot about. It already is going to start saving you money. You're going to love how it tracks all of your subscriptions and lets you cancel them right in the app with just a few taps. No more hunting down customer service numbers. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Scotty, the Red Wings play the Washington Capitals at home today. Capitals struggling lately. I think I said 3-6-1 before we hit recording in their last 10. Not scoring enough goals to overcome their poor defense anymore. This is a team that is struggling a little bit. Red Wings are obviously trying to kind of limp their way to the Olympics with Simon Edvinsson out. We saw in practice, I think what most fans would say is probably the pairings they wanted to see the most with Edvinsson out. And that, of course, is Albert Johansson with Moritz Seider on the top pair, Chiarot and ASP, and then I believe it was JBD, Gustafsson, and Hamonic cycling in on the third pair with one another. Albert Johansson has stepped up his game the last few weeks. Now, granted, there's a huge leap between the third pair and the first pair in terms of deployment, but if anyone's deserved an opportunity to play on that top pair, it's Albert Johansson with his puck movement ability and the extra patience he's been showing.
Yeah, and I think what's also interesting is this was a conversation they had on the broadcast. Seider is kind of getting to a point now where it just feels like anybody who is his partner just has a good game. And they mentioned some, defensemen from Red Wings past that also kind of had a similar thing where it just didn't really matter who their partner was. They were going to have a good game every night, and their partner was going to have a good game every night. And that's just kind of the level that Seider is at right now. So I'm super down to give it a shot. I think that Aljo, as we mentioned over the last couple of weeks, has been a lot better than he was the first 3 or 4 months of the season. So that's certainly a way to, reward, I guess is the word I'll use, him for that level of play. It's the give and take that we always talk about, like that makes the bottom 4 awfully scary. But I also think that if you play the top pair, half an hour, then I guess it's probably worth it too. So I don't know. I am not excited because I'd rather just Edvinsson was healthy, but I am intrigued. I'll put it that way.
Right. Well, if Eric Gustafsson gets into the game, I think that also allows you to make him your power play 2 quarterback. I think Axel Sandin-Pellikka has just been struggling a little bit in that role, and not 100% always his fault. Like in the game against the Kings, Kane lost the puck right at the blue line upon entering, and ASP actually made a nice play to break up the rush coming back the other way. But Eric Gustafsson has power play quarterbacking experience, and so obviously didn't work out great last year for the Red Wings, but that's somebody you can lean on to kind of take on some of those minutes if you're that intent on sheltering ASP whenever possible. Scotty, when it comes to the Capitals itself, what do you think of this team? What do you make of them?
Yeah, I mean, you had kind of mentioned already and mentioned before we hit records too that this is a good team that has been struggling a little bit lately. This is from a team makeup, I guess I'll say perspective, it is kind of, I don't know, weird. Like they've gone through ebbs and flows throughout the season. Both of their special teams have been bottom 10 in the NHL. Like that's kind of off brand for, the Capitals of the last couple of years. They have gotten some pretty good goaltending. They have obviously a dynamic, top six in terms of offense, but they allow shots, but they also don't allow too many goals. It's just like a weird team that's been constructed, and they've obviously been pretty darn good for a long time. But yeah, in their last 10, what are they? 3-6-1 in the last 10.
Right.
And they're a few losses away from a 500-point percentage again. So, and then, you also have the Wings are 2-0 already, 2-0-0 against them this season. So,
and suddenly they've forgotten how to score goals. And that's what it's come down to in this recent stretch. I think I said at the start of the segment, goaltending's not bailing them out anymore. Actually, that's wrong. I was 180 degrees incorrect on that.
Good job.
Logan Thompson is still playing great. Got a .912 save percentage on the year. He's been playing phenomenal. What's happened is kind of similar to what happened to the Red Wings a few years ago, where they were outscoring their deficiencies. Well, the Capitals their scoring has really slowed. Across the season, they're fourth in total shot attempts at 5-on-5, and they rank sixth in total shots on goal, while ranking fourth in goals scored at 5-on-5. But in the last 10 games, that 6 3-on-1 stretch, their shot attempts for has fallen to 20th, and their goals for has fallen to 25th. Meanwhile, their goals against in that span has stayed relatively good at around middle of the league. So they're just not scoring anymore. They're not outscoring their defensive deficiencies, and Logan Thompson's still playing fairly well for them. But it's just they're not scoring enough goals. They're not getting enough shots. So a team that was high-flying, rush opportunity team, getting a lot of opportunities and goal scoring just hasn't been able to find back of the net. They are led up front. Tom Wilson has 46 points in 45 games. Ovechkin has 45 and 54. Like, they're getting good, solid point production all around the lineup, right? They have 4 guys in the 40s. They have another 4 in the 30s. Good, spread out point production. But it's just struggling the last 10 games. So if you're Detroit, I mean, they don't have good penalty kill or power play on the season either. That's not impressive either. If you're Detroit, this is a game that you got to take advantage of. Kind of similar how you got to take advantage of the Kings, because you got 2 big games against the Avalanche coming up. Not that the Red Wings can't beat the Avalanche. The Avalanche are actually, sputtering in relative to the Avalanche skill level a little bit right now. They're struggling defensively too, relative again to their skill level.
They haven't won literally all of their games, so that, right. A change of pace from where they were at. Yeah,
but it would feel a lot better going into those games if you could beat the Capitals first and foremost. And I think the Red Wings should. I think the Red Wings are a better team than the Capitals.
Yeah, like I said, they're already 2-0 against them on the year. One of those the Capitals got a loser point from, and they took them to overtime. But yeah, that's they're already have 2 wins over them. So why not make it 3?
Also, hell, it's a wild. They're in a wild card race. You can really hurt them there and help your case because. As much as we'd love the Red Wings to get a divisional seed, I think most of us would have been happy with a wild card seed coming into the year. Helps your playoff case by taking 2 points from another playoff contender.
For sure. I'll just take postseason at this point, please.
Right. It's crazy. They've been playing so well that we're kind of subconsciously shifting our expectations to want them to hold on to a divisional seed.
I think. I don't think that's, not fair for anybody, yeah.
It's like those Tigers fans who were like, oh, well, we made the playoffs. That's good enough after they blew like a 15-game lead on the division. Like, no, it's okay to be pissed about the fact that they had it in the bag and just decided to not win games anymore. Like, expectations can shift and should shift when a team's playing really well, but with as tight as the Eastern Conference is right now, if they make it in on a wild card spot, I'd be very happy about that still. And beating Washington, who's pursuing a wild card spot, would certainly help that case.
Yeah, 100%.
Scotty, any final thoughts?
We ball, baby.
We do ball. We'll be back with a new episode recapping this one tomorrow. Stay tuned for that. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.